Imagine my shock that the tenuous alliance between the politicians and their corporal allies and the common folk they rule over has already begun to crumble. Now, it's interesting, and I should point this out, that if you think about it historically, the last time elites, if you wish to use the term, which is a bit nebulous, but we'll use it for now, were the nobility back then, actually cared about the people beneath them was maybe 600 years ago, certainly several hundred years ago, when the last remnants of the feudal economy were dying out, aka during the late Middle Ages. Because back then, due to things such as noblesse oblige, the notion that there's an obligation that the feudal lord has to his underlings, these things were still principles that govern that society. But it hasn't been that way for a very, very long time. You need only look at the 19th century, the so-called Gilded Age of the United States, and the time of the so-called great robber barons, which many of you might be familiar with. You know some of these names, of course. The great industrialists of the time, Andrew Carnegie, Cornelius Vanderbilt, J.D. Rockefeller. These are the men that built fortunes that, if you adjusted for inflation today, could potentially even dwarf the fortunes of the likes of an Elon Musk, maybe. And they were people who were very ruthless in their pursuit of their business. And let's be honest here, they didn't exactly care about the plight of the common man. They exploited Americans and immigrants alike in order to make their fortune, and in many circles they are heralded as heroes for doing so. So, we need to be very clear about something, that it has been a very, very long time since so-called elites cared about the people beneath them. For at least hundreds of years now, that has not been the case. And it's not been the case manifestly for at least over 150 years. And so a lot of people are surprised at this current moment in time by the fact that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are so gung-ho about HB1 visas and don't really seem to care very much about the common American and his plight in terms of employment or opportunities. In fact, Elon Musk can be quoted as calling the people that take issues with his plan, along with Vivek Ramaswamy's, to expand H-1B visas, specifically for Indians, as calling these people contemptible fools. And thus has the house of cards somewhat crumbled. Not entirely. The question, of course, is what Daddy Trump is going to do about this, and already he has decided to sign with Elon Musk on this. I don't know why many people, maybe even a majority of people in the United States, actually still think that politicians are somehow for them, or that their corporate overlords are somehow for them. I'll never forget, years and years ago, the first time I saw that skit, that clip by George Carlin, you know the one, where he talks about the club, hence the name of this video. It is a very large club indeed, and you ain't part of it. You ain't in it. If you have concerns that seem pedestrian to these people, rest assured that they don't care about those concerns. Now, of course, nominally, Trump and his buddies have talked about dealing with illegal immigration, but the damage is probably already done. There's been so much illegal immigration, so much importing of people from unsavory places, who then consequently make the places they move to rather unsavory, that I don't see a way of reversing that. I'm sure you all heard the story in New York City about how a woman was simply lit on fire quite casually by a very nice gentleman from Guatemala. Nothing was done about that. Nothing was done to prevent it. So, a lot of this stuff is just too little too late. It might be the case that his border czar cracks down on immigration, and there's no more immigration, and maybe there'll even be some deportations. But, to be honest, I think this is just meant to serve as feed for the masses. So the common folk do get something they wanted in order to placate them, but all the other stuff, the stuff that does not serve the common folks' interests, that will be rubber stamped and given the green light regardless. You could say it's something along the lines of the tragedy of the commons, but even if you don't want to call the situation with Elon Musk and Vivek something along the lines of the tragedy of the commons, it just goes to show what corpos care about. Corpos, understandably, care about their own corporate interests, their own business interests. Vivek in particular has been known for a very long time as being very slimy, to say the least. About 10 years ago, he bought a failed Alzheimer's medication and then tried to market it to people as if it actually worked. All this guy cares about is making profit. He initially was critical of Trump, calling January 6th a betrayal, and then, of course, changed his tone when it was convenient to him because he realized, oh wow, I can get in good here with Trump. Why not? These people do not have any loyalty to Americans, whatever that means. And arguably no one does these days. What is the United States other than a giant shopping mall? And then when you complain about the fact that it's a country falling apart at the seams with lots and lots of serious issues, from drug addiction to social issues to just general lack of opportunities in terms of getting out of difficult situations, then what you'll hear is someone quoting the latest GDP figures. Ben Shapiro has always been good about this.
Why are you guys complaining? Why are you guys complaining? GDP is up 7.1%. No, actually up 9.3%. GDP is great.
I don't think people understand that things like GDP might have some nominal value, and indeed a general value that correlates with the overall health of a country, but it's not that precise. And the average person, if he's struggling, if he wants to get a better job, not worry about health insurance, not worry about the dump hole of the neighborhood he lives in, that quoting GDP figures isn't going to do anything to him. He wants something more visceral. He wants something on the ground to take effect. And what's the likelihood of that at the end of the day? There's such an important lesson to be taken home here, and regardless of Democrat, Republican, whatever, you might like one party more than the other. That's perfectly fine. But corpos are corpos. The United States is basically cyberpunk in the flesh. There is not another country I can think of that has so many problems, where the citizens suffer so much, but they still think it's the most amazing place on earth. Say what you want about places like Somalia or Sudan or Colombia. No one there is deluding themselves that it's an amazing place to live in. But the United States, in typical American fashion, does it differently. And I'm sure you've all heard the term, every American is just a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, right? Sometime, someday, somewhere off on the horizon, they too will become multimillionaires, beyond the grave, presumably. And I want you to know, I'm not saying all this stuff superfluously. I'm saying this as somebody who actually genuinely cares. I have some very close friends in the United States, one in particular I think of constantly. Love him like a brother. And this guy is one of the most upstanding, sincere, honest, hardworking people I've ever known in my life. And whatever he does, the environment, the country, the people, just take a dump on him. This was a man of great honor and values, and indeed remains to this day a man of great honor and values. But by the gods, this country has done an amazing job of beating it out of him and bringing him to the point of nearly breaking him. He's still going, but he's not the same person he was even 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. And when I see that, and I know of others, it tells me that something is fundamentally wrong. It's not enough just that you work hard, because oftentimes you're punished for it. Hard work is not enough. And the problem is that elites, like I said, don't care about the common man's plight. And so, when you vote them in, what are you doing? It's all to give you that feeling of importance, as if your vote actually mattered, in a really, truly substantive way, which it doesn't. Sure, there's some changes that will take place here and there, little things, maybe even one or two bigger things. But at the end of the day, nothing of substance fundamentally is going to change on the ground. Because, let's be honest, increasing access to HP-1 visas only benefits corpos who run massive businesses. It doesn't benefit normal workers. It doesn't benefit small business owners. It benefits those who rule over you. Just like the late great George Carlin said in his legendary stand-up bit. And if you think this is just one aspect of it, you better wait. There's going to be more and more of it, I predict, as we see that the corpos have been elected, as we'll be able to look on as the current iteration of corpos who run the place do what they do best, which is to serve their own interests and take a big dump on the common man. And I'm sorry to say this, I find the situation genuinely, sincerely tragic. That so many people who are so invested in political parties, in this case, electing Trumpf as if he were the savior who's going to solve everything, well, at the end of the day, he might improve a few things here and there, but the fundamental problems, the drug addiction, the lack of opportunities, the hopelessness that so characterizes the current year in the United States, none of that is going to be fixed just because he's in office, and certainly not when the corpos are going to do their thing. You don't need to play Cyberpunk 2077. Just be a working class man struggling in the US right now, and you can get a pretty good whiff of that without playing the game. It genuinely makes me very, very sad, and I worry a great deal about my friend and his future, as I do for many of the other men in the United States who are struggling to get by. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for tuning in. Many, many special thanks to my very generous patrons on Patreon, my very generous donors on PayPal. Without you, this channel could not exist. Thank you so much. And if you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, all that YouTube jazz would be much appreciated. Hit the bell icon to be informed of my videos. Appreciate that too. If I'm still alive, I'll check you out next time. Until then, may the gods truly watch over you. Bye-bye for now.
If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.